Good morning, everyone from Brussels. I propose that we start today's webinar. So my name is Polona Gregorin. I'm the head of unit dealing with, among others, aviation, maritime emissions in the European Commission Directorate-General for Climate Action. And it's a real pleasure to welcome you today to this second webinar organized by us, together with our colleagues in the European Maritime Safety Agency. So today we have around 1,200 participants registered for two parallel sessions, the one that we have now in the morning and one in the afternoon, which will be a similar session, which nearly doubles the number of participants compared to the session that we have back in September. So just confirms the growing interest in the implementation of the EU Emission Trading System for maritime, as we, of course, approach the 1st of January when the system becomes operational. So with today's webinar, we will first provide a recap a bit of the overview that we did in the first webinar on the extension of the ETS to maritime and the upcoming compliance steps. And we will also further elaborate on more practical needs related to implementation, such as how to operate the Union Registry and the THETIS MRV IT environment. And we will, of course, also address any requests from your side for clarification that you might raise during the webinar. So the first presentation on the agenda will be the recap of the extension of the EU ETS to the maritime sector, including the main compliance steps. Then we will move to the second point of the agenda on the presentation of the EU Registry with a live demo on how the system works and how it can be used to purchase and surrender allowances. And finally, colleagues from the Maritime Safety Agency, EMSA, will give a presentation on the THETIS MRV IT environment, again with a live demo to guide us through the main steps and latest deployments of features in the system, including the revised monitoring plan to be used for 2024. So before moving to these presentations, we will launch a poll through WebEx to ask you to highlight the key topics that you would be interested to delve a bit more into detail, so that helps us a bit prioritize the focus for the Q&A session that we will have at a later stage. So I would ask you to submit any questions that you have, like we did the last time, during the webinar in the chat, and we will try to address as many of those during the dedicated point at the end of today's agenda. So just for your information, again, the webinar will be recorded, as we might be further distributing it for communication purposes. So just for you to know that the name of participants will, of course, be fully anonymized. So I already want to thank you in advance for your active participation in the webinar today. And I will now pass the floor to my colleague for the first presentation on the recap of the general principles of the EU ETS and the first compliance steps there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polona. Good morning, everybody. Before proceeding to the first presentation, we are now launching in the WebEx app the poll mentioned during the introduction, and we kindly ask you to select two topics you would like us to focus during the Q&As in particular. You will see the list. They range from entity responsible for MRV ETS compliance to partial emission reports, the opening of accounts in the Union Registry, the coverage of emissions within scope, the THETIS MRV IT environment, the revision of monitoring plan for 2024, verification activities, and the surrendering allowances in the registry, and finally, the attribution of administering authority. The poll will be open for 5 minutes, and right before the final Q&A session, we will inform you about the outcome of it. Thank you so much. Can now pass to the first presentation, which is again a presentation on the overview of EU policy side on the extension to the maritime transport sector of the EU ETS. So, as you might already be aware of, as part of the EU policy to decarbonize maritime transport, a set of measures were proposed by the Commission in 2021 as part of the Fit for 55 package, and notably the EU ETS extension to maritime is one of these key measures, which was adopted earlier this year and will kick in as of 2024. The EU objective to decarbonize maritime sector is part of the overall commitment to climate neutrality by 2050 for the economy and the 2030 reduction target of minus 55% net GHG emissions on 1990. The maritime sector represents an important emitters in terms of contribution to total EU GHG emissions between 3 and 4% growing, and above 13% of total EU GHG transport associated emissions for the Union. So now to give you an overview of the EU emissions trading system, we would like to show you a very brief video which is publicly available on DigiClima website to outline the key features and functioning of the system. You will also find the link embedded in these slides for future consultation.
The Earth's climate is changing, and each one of us plays a role in the products we buy, in the electricity we use, and in the energy that powers our businesses. Manufacturing, agriculture, transport, waste, power generation, and other sectors release carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere, where they trap heat from the sun. But more carbon dioxide traps more of the heat, leading to global warming. The result? Changes in our climate, with ripple effects on weather, food production, water supplies, human health, and more. But there are smart ways forward. These include emissions trading, which is the cornerstone of the European Union's strategy to tackle climate change head-on. For more than a decade, the EU has worked to cut its greenhouse gas emissions with the help of the world's first, largest, and longest-running international system for trading emissions allowances. And the system keeps growing stronger. In a nutshell, the EU's emissions trading system, or ETS, creates a financial incentive for the biggest emitters to cut back. How? Well, since 2005, the ETS has set a cap on the total amount of greenhouse gases companies can emit each year and requires monitoring of these emissions. A fixed number of allowances, which are the currency of the carbon market, are issued, and each year companies hold enough allowances to cover their emissions or face significant fines. Don't have enough? Cut your emissions or buy extra allowances from another emitter. Have extra allowances? Keep them for next year or sell them. This flexibility ensures that emissions are cut where it costs the least to do so. Over time, the cap is reduced. Fewer allowances are issued, techniques to cut emissions are developed, and total emissions drop. Companies have a financial incentive to cut their emissions or pay others to do so. Today, this cap and trade system covers around half the EU's emissions and more than 3/4 of the international carbon market. Interest is growing among business and government leaders around the world. The EU's ETS proves that putting a price on carbon is possible and makes economic sense. This flexible, cost-effective, and business-friendly approach is helping the EU move faster toward a low-carbon, greener future. Visit our website to find out more about how emissions trading works to secure our future.
Let's resume our presentation with a focus now on the key elements of the extension of the ETS to maritime. As you know, this extension was made possible thanks to the revision of the ETS directive, and the extension will kick in as of January 2024. It will be based on the very same principle as other ETS sectors, by which shipping companies will monitor through the year the emissions, report those, and purchase and surrender the necessary amount of ETS emissions allowances to cover what has been emitted throughout the year. The system will be based on equal treatment on routes and according to the principle of flag neutrality. It will foresee a phase-in period for the first 2 years by 40% and 70% of emissions respectively. And it will be based on the principle by which each shipping company will be attributed to the administering authority of a new member state. So it will be, the compliance will be based on the shipping company. It will not be based on a single ship basis. The system will build on the already established monitoring, reporting and verification system of emissions for the maritime sector, the EU MRV system. In terms of geographical scope, the ETS for the maritime sector will cover the entirety of emissions from the voyages taking place within the EU and when the ships are within EU ports, but only half of the emissions from voyages starting or ending outside of the EU. In terms of greenhouse gas coverage, CO2 will be covered as the first year, 2024, with the extension to methane and nitrous oxide planned as from 2026. To be noted that under the revised MRV, methane and nitrous oxide will already be monitored and reported starting 2024. In terms of coverage, the system will cover large ships above 5,000 gross tonnage and large offshore ships only as from 2027. Now, I would like to spend a few words on the compliance cycle for the key actors involved in the process. As you can see from this slide, the process is a multi-step one, which basically involves 3 sets of actors: shipping companies, verifiers, and administering authorities. In the next slide, I will in particular focus on the key immediate steps which awaits shipping companies from now up to April next year. But coming back to the full compliance cycle, as you can see, action can already and should already be taken now through the preparation of the individual monitoring plans. Those will be used to carry out the monitoring of emission on a ship basis by companies in 2024. And this monitor will feed into the individual emissions reports, again on a ship level, as it is currently the case under MRV, which will have to be verified and submitted, that therefore involving verifiers as the second level in the slide shows. The aggregation of these individual ship emission reports, including partial emission reports, which are introduced with the revision of the MRV regulation, will feed into aggregate emission reports at company level, which, according to the same timeline, will be due in the year following the monitoring year. So for the first compliance cycle, the monitoring will take place throughout 2024, and the deadline for submission of emission reports, ship level and aggregate level 1, will be by March 2025. Throughout the year, at any moment, companies will be able to purchase allowances. And in the year following the monitoring, so in 2025, they will have a deadline to surrender the equal amount of allowances due in the Union Registry to ensure compliance with their ETS rendering obligations. As you can see from this slide, apart from companies, we have verifier and administering authority active in the system. Verifiers are already present and active under MRV. They will be called to carry out additional roles, which are shown in this slide. But as far as administering authority, this category, this actor, is the new one introduced by the revision of the directive and the regulation. And they will be called to ensure in particular the management of the registry, enforcement and compliance following the compliance deadline. With this last slide, let's focus a bit on the next immediate steps for companies in terms of compliance. So now we are very close to the end of 2023. What companies can and should do in these months is to get familiar and consult the relevant legislative texts. Some of them are already published in the official journal of the European Union. Some others, and I'm referring to secondary implementing delegated acts, are about to be published. So they're available, but in their draft form, not yet into force. In this slide, you have links to the relevant pages. So we encourage you, if you are not practical with it yet, to consult this text. You will find all the information and the links in particular in the DG Clima dedicated page. Another important action to be taken is to also use and consult the communication material which is being published by DG Clima and EMSA. We have FAQs. At the moment, you have a set of FAQ which was published back in summer, but be aware these are being revised and are going to very shortly be updated and published in the same DG Clima dedicated page towards the end of the month. You can access webinar recordings and presentations. Again, all the relevant links are available on the DG Clima page. And in case of need, for any communication need or clarification requests, you can always contact the relevant help desk. So it is now the time where you can already start preparing your revised monitoring plan on the basis of all this amount of information and on the basis of the relevant legal text, the revised templates which have been published in the official journal at the beginning of November. To be noted that this revision of the monitoring plan can start and should start already now on a ship level, but outside the THETIS MRV IT system, because the THETIS MRV system will implement this functionality as from January 2024. At that moment, the next step would be submission of the monitoring plan in the system to the verifier, available as from January 2024, and our EMSA colleagues will further detail this important point in their presentation today. Then the moment the attribution list is published in the official journal in February 2024, a next key step will be the identification of the responsible administering authority, which will allow you to launch a request for the opening of a MOA account in the Union Registry. So we will have at that stage two potential cases. We will have companies which are on the list as published, and for those the association will be also visible in THETIS MRV. But we might also have companies which are not on the list, for instance, because they had no port call history. And in those cases, companies will still have to identify the responsible administering authority, and to do that, THETIS MRV will be there to support them. So don't hesitate to take action, even if your name is not on the list. The next important immediate deadline is that of April 2024, because by then you will have to submit your positively assessed monitoring plan by the verifier to the administering authority for approval. And with this last slide, I now pass the floor to our colleagues, which will provide you an overview and live demo of the Union Registry.
Good morning, everyone. Should I proceed with the live demo already, Luca?
Okay. Yes, good morning. So my name is Ralf Fischermann. I work on the Union Registry. The Union Registry is the tool that underlies the emission trading system, and is the one that, well, many of you will get to know very soon then. I'm giving you now a very quick overview before we will show you a live demonstration how to create an account there. So the registry has been established according to the ETS directive. Operations are centralized there in a single register since July 2012. All the participants in the EU ETS must have an account to participate, otherwise it won't work, for compliance and for trading. There are today over 12,000 open accounts, and we have around 29,000 users logging on a regular basis. Next one. So what is this? It's an IT system. It's similar to an online banking system with which we ensure the accurate accounting of allowances. That is paramount. Then we have data integrity. It holds the accounts of the operators and the traders in the carbon market. It keeps the balance of allowances that have been acquired either in auctions or on the secondary market. To that point, I come a little later. It enables the transfer of allowances between the participants. They are tradable. It records the annual verified CO2 emissions, reconciles allowances and verified emissions. In the end, each operator must surrender allowances to cover for their verified emissions, and after the surrender of the allowances will get a compliance status. What we do with the Union Registry is, though, we do not record the financial leg of transactions. Next one. The Union Registry is a responsibility between shared between the Commission and the Member States. On the EU level, the Commission takes regulatory decisions, so it gives instructions to the central administrator, who is the Director-General of DG Klima, and is the people who work for him in that respect. So we operate and maintain this registry. We also have a service desk, which is, however, the contact point for the national administrators. The member states, in turn, with their competent authorities, or the ministries in the member states, take regulatory decisions concerning operators. They appoint also a national administrator that manages the accounts under their jurisdiction, and the national administrator also operates a service desk that is the contact point for the operators, so for you. The users in the registry, there are some that are mandatory, which are those who own stationary installations or aircraft operators, and as of January 24, also the shipping companies. We also have verifiers as mandatory users because they will verify or approve emissions in the systems. We have voluntary users, traders and banks and private persons who can open accounts to participate in the market because the allowances are a financial instrument, so there is some interest in that. We have different account types. We have operator accounts, aircraft operator accounts, and now the new ones are maritime operator holding accounts, all the obliged entities, and we have trading accounts for all other entities. The transaction types are transfers between any participant, and lastly, the surrender of allowances for compliance purposes. A very important question is how to obtain allowances. There are two ways, or several ways. There is a primary market, so auctions are taking place 5 days a week with around 3 million allowances per session in lots of 500. This is Deutsche Börse, EEX, who organizes those auctions. It's possible to bid directly or via an intermediary. The large majority of operators will not obtain their allowances via that way because it's relatively, it's a bit of an effort to be acknowledged, accredited in this bidding process as a bidder. So we recommend rather to obtain allowances on the secondary market. Next one, please. So just going to the point 2, allowances can be bought via a financial service provider. So any bank basically should be able to purchase allowances on behalf of the participants and make sure that those allowances are transferred to the account of the operator. We have they can also be obtained in the form of futures, and once the contracts are due, those future contracts would become allowances and be transferred to the account. There are links here in this presentation that will be made available, of course, to you, from which you can find further information how this works in practice. And I think with this, I already hand over to my colleague for the live demo.
Thank you, Ralph. Good. 1 second so that I could share my screen. Let me know once you can see it. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria De Castro, and in behalf of the Union Registry implementation team, I will be conducting the live demo of the Union Registry application. I hope it's visible to you now. Okay, so in today's session, I will be covering some important functionalities that we think would be useful and of interest to you, namely how to log in into the Union Registry application, how to perform a registration into one of the registries, and as mentioned, also I will show you how to perform an account opening for the Maritime Operator Holding account. I will also touch upon a bit on how to do the transfer of allowances from a holding account, and the last topic would be to tackle just a small and briefly the compliance. So to perform surrender, how to perform surrender and to report the emissions. And just a disclaimer before I start, the environment that I will be using today is our acceptance environment. So there might be some instability or server issues along the way. Hopefully in this case, it will be at a minimum. So apologies already in advance if we have some technical difficulties. All right, without further ado, as what you can see on your screen, this is the Union Registry welcome page, as we call it. So this is the public page. So this is where you can find this registry switcher on the left side menu. This is, you will see all the member states or the registries, as we call them, available. So it's up to you to choose which registry you would like to access to and register into depending on your situation. For this demo, I will use the EU or the European Union. So since this is what we have access to. And once you choose the registry that you would like to have access to, you have this homepage. So the homepage is fully customizable per registry or per member state. So you will see some welcome messages customized for that specific country. So for the European Union in our test environment, this is how it looks like. And yes, I will try to enlarge that as I have seen in the comment, but of course that affects as well the quality, but okay. You have two options on the screen. So first is the login or the first time, or if you're a first time user, you click on the first time user. So for the first time user, you also have two options. It's either if you have an EU login account or if you don't have one. So if you have an EU login account, you click directly to login into that registry. And if you don't have any, you have to create an EU login account. So this is very important that this is a prerequisite in order for you to be able to access a specific membership or a specific registry. You need to have an EU login account. I will not show you how to do this today because we don't have the luxury of time to do all the steps, but I'll show you this form of the EU login. So this is how you will, this is a form for you to create an account. So you have the first name, last name, the email, and to confirm your email address. And then you have here the button to create an account. And this is also where you need to add your device or your mobile phone number in order to be able to authenticate in the Union Registry application, which I will show you a bit later. Okay, so for this presentation, I have already created the test users and the EU login account, so I don't have to do it now. So the user that I'm using right now is already an existing EU login account, and I will show you how to perform the login. So once you click on the login, you are redirected to this sign in page. And then you would need to have your email address or the username that will be provided to you in the email that you will receive from the EU login account creation. So you just click on next. And then you have to enter, of course, your password. And then for the verification method, it's two-factor authentication. So you need a second verification method. In this case, in reality, it has to be through the EU login mobile app, which you can download in the App Store or in the Google Play. So this kind of information, I believe this will be provided to you by the specific registries that you will be accessing or you'll be registering into. So rest assured that this information, you will find it available for you as well. Okay, so for this user, what I would use is the EU login mobile QR code. So this means that once I click on sign in, I have to use my phone with the EU login application. So I have to scan the QR code, and in my phone there would be the code that will be generated in order for me to log in. So I'll just have to type it in. And then sign in. Okay, so if you are a completely new user in that specific registry, which is the case for the user that I'm using, what would welcome you is the user registration page. So this is how it looks like. You need to fill in your personal details. So you need to fill in some personal details, and there are some fields that are already filled in, as you can see, the EU login account, UID, the first name, the last name, and the default email address and the confirmation. So this information are coming from the EU login account that you created prior to accessing and registering to the specific registry. So these are editable fields, but we encourage you not to have a synchronized information between your EU login account and the registered user details that you will be submitting for that specific country. So now I will just type in some information here. So these are completely made up information just for the sake of the demo. And you will also notice that once I click in on a specific field and I move out of the field, there would be some error messages that will already be shown in the screen. This is to help you and guide you to know exactly if there's a problem with the specific data input that you have entered. Then of course, you can't. But of course, for this one, this is made up. But in reality, you have to use your own mobile phone number, and it has to be the same with the EU login account. And then secret question. And you'll see that the submit button will be enabled because all of the fields are. Click on submit, and you have the summary of the personal details for you to review them. Once again, if all is good, then you can confirm that they are correct, and then you click on confirm. Okay, so this is the success screen. So it has some message. Important thing, in my opinion, in this message is this is what we call the URID, or the unique registry identifier. So this is the one attributed to your user profile that you have to take note when communicating to your national administrator. So this is unique to you. When you close that success screen, okay, so once you have registered into the system, you are now allowed to request a new account. So this is the button to request a new account. And if you have not taken down notes of the URID from the success screen, you will still see it here. So this is very useful still here. And you can, just to show you briefly, when you click on the user profile settings, you have here the information that you have entered during registration. So it's not lost, it's still here. You can find them here. So you will still have to be able to review them just in case you see some errors. But of course, they are read-only, so you cannot do anything more but just to view. Okay, so going back. So this is the request new account button. I'll just show you briefly so how to create an account. This is for when you are a completely new user with no account. But for the sake of creating an account, I will use another user just to show you another type of user in the registry. And I just have to quick log out. Okay, for this user, you would notice I would use the mobile phone number. Usually it's not the case, not possible currently, but this is a test environment. And for this user that I have to use a phone, my mobile phone number in this case, and it will send me an SMS text challenge, hopefully soon, before I can log in. So it's very much secured because it's connected to your mobile device, so anyone cannot just log in using your account. Okay, so before while it loads, just to mention that indeed for the creation of an account, for the requesting of the new account, it's important to let you know that this is dependent on the national registry in the national regulation of that specific country. Some member states allow their users, account representatives and users to create the account themselves. However, for some countries that we know, they do not allow their end users or account representatives such as yourself to be able to request a new account. It's the national administrators who would do this for you. So for this case, you would not be able to see the request new account button, and it will not be available to you, just to let you know that it is completely normal. It depends on the national registry. So this user that I have right here is the one with the multiple accounts. So for example, if you're already an existing user of the registry of that country, then you will see all the accounts that you have in that are linked to you. So you have here the list of accounts that you have. So for this one, you have 15 accounts with the with the variations of account type. So you have trading account, so you have OHA as well, and then you have aircraft operator holding account, and some MOHA that we have already created. Okay, so for creating the requesting of the new account, so if you click on here, you would see this form. So in this form, you have different form groups. So for this, you have the OHA, the aircraft operator holding account, the maritime operator holding account, the trading account, and so on and so forth. So for this demo, I will just show you a bit the trading account. And you will notice that the form groups, as how we call these panels, they would change accordingly to the need of that specific trading account. So for trading account, you have 5 form groups which you need to define. You have the account holder, transaction settings, account representatives, and the transaction voluntary threshold. For maritime, you have more. So for maritime, you have 7. So for the first form group, you have to select the account type and of course the name. So for this, we can just mention this name. For the MOHA, this is completely up to you. And you would notice that for that form group, it now has the green indicator or the check indicator here that it's already positively validated, so there's no errors in here and it's all is good. And the second step is to define the account holder. So for the definition of the account holder, it's either a company or a person. This is depending on the situation of the account holder. So there are 2 ways to specify the account holder in the registry. So if you are an existing AR of the account that is already linked to an existing account holder, for example, the account holder is already existing in the registry and is currently linked to the user, you can also link the new account being created to that existing account holder. For example, for this one, there is already an existing account holder that I'd like to use, and that is, you just type it in and then it will show up here, the matching account holder based on your search string. So here I will use this one because this is what I would need. And all the fields will be pre-filled. So as you'll notice here, then you don't have to type it in because it uses existing account holder information. And also good to mention that we have some help text here and there, as you can see here. So we're still improving the look and feel for the help text, but basically the idea is that you have this tooltip text to help you and guide you and give you some information about specific fields. And that's about it for the account holder. And for the maritime operator information, so these are the basic fields or basic information that you need to fill in. So you have the IMO number, which is a 7-digit number, and then of course the shipping company name, the shipping country of your registration, and the shipping company type. So for the shipping company type, you have the registered owner or the ISM company. So if you choose registered owner, there's another table that would appear here, which is the ISM company responsible for ISM code. So this is an optional field, but just to show you, you can enter here an ISM company and the corresponding IMO number, and yeah, all the list that you have that is applicable to you. And then for registered owner, that is for registered owner, and for the ISM company, it will be the registered ship owner that you would need to fill in just in case you have it available for you. Okay, then you have here the first year verified emission, if it's 2024 or up to 2028. So in case for you, it will be 2024, then you choose 2024. And then for the maritime operator address and contact information, if it's the same as the account holder information, you just have to take this, and you don't need to type in all the information about the address. But right now I will do this. And yes, that concludes the maritime operator information and the transaction settings. So for the transaction settings, depending on the account type, you would have one or two options. So for MOHA, you have two options. The first one is to enable the 2R principle. So a brief description about this is that if you want to perform transfers towards an account in your trusted account list, if you enable 2I principle, you don't need a second approval from another AR or another authorized representative. So in this case, I'll just put no. And then you have here some note what is the effect of the options that you choose here. And then the second one is to allow transfer to account not on the trusted account list. If you're not aware, it's just to mention that for specific account types like MOHA, IOHA, and OHA, they are not by default allowed to transfer outside of their tile. So this is how you would like to bypass it. If you would like to be able to transfer outside of your tile, then this is how you do it. And then for the account representatives, this is how to add an AR to your account. So for example, this one I'd like to add. Okay, so here you will see the list of authorized representatives. This is only when it's an existing account holder. You can as well appoint existing ARs of that account holder to the same account. So for example, this one, I will choose myself. And then you select as well the rights. So the rights or the role, as we call it in the old user interface, is that this gives the possibility for the account representatives to do certain things or certain operations in the registry. It could either be read-only, so it means no actions allowed, or is it possible for this AR to just initiate, approve, or initiate and approve. So the minimum requirement for account creation is 2 representatives with the combination of initiate right and the one with the approve right. So that is done. And then for the contact person, this is just to specify the contact person of this account. If it's available, this is completely optional. You may want to not specify any contact person here. That's completely fine. It's allowed at least in the system. And lastly, the transaction voluntary threshold. So for this one, this is to set a limit in the kind of transaction that is done in your account. So this affects the transfer of allowances within the EU and also to Switzerland, if that is something that you would have to do. So it means that, for example, I would put 10,000 single transaction limit, then it means that if I would like to perform a transfer of 10,101, it will be rejected by the system because the single transaction limit for you is only 10,000. So this is an additional security measure. So anything that violates the said limit here, so you have different types of limitations here that you can set for your account. This is completely voluntary as the name. You may choose not to also specify, but it's there also for your use. And also this is dependent on the settings of the National Registry. I've been mentioning that a lot, but this is also dependent on the registry. So some registries allow their account holder to specify transaction limits for their accounts. Some don't. Okay, and now that is done, you just click on the request new account. And yes, this is the success screen. And you have here as well the request identifier. So this is also important because this is the ID of the task for the account creation. And then this one has to be approved. This task has to be approved by the national administrator. So different member states have their own administrative processes. I will not go through that because I'm not fully aware of each of the member states' administrative process. But in case that your account creation request has been approved with all the documentations that you have to submit, the national administrator, the one that I'm showing in the screen, is the old user interface. So this is the current system that we have right now and the current look. So this is a national administrator. So what the national administrators do is that they find the task here. So this includes all the tasks that is available in their registry, and then you search for it. And this is that task that we just created. And it will be, let me just copy this for later. And this is the task, and I will approve it for this, and so that you will see that the account has been created in the end. Okay, so this one has been approved. So let's go back to the screen of an AR, or the application for the authorized representative. So let me just refresh it to make sure I have the fresh data. And I can search for specific accounts depending on certain criteria through this filter list. So for example, this one is the account identifier. I should be able to search and find it here. So this is the account that we just created. And also just to mention and to reiterate what the colleagues already said earlier, that the account opening for MOHA is only possible on once the attribution list is published, which is on February. Even though and also to mention that this functionality is not yet available as well in the live environment or in the production environment, and will be ready around that time. Okay, so this is the MOHA that we just opened. So you have here all the information on the card, and when you click into this, you are redirected to the single account view. So the one before this is what we call the multi-account view, because that's where all the accounts are that are linked to you. And this is when you are inside the account. So once you're inside the account, this is what you will see. So you have the overview page. You have here the ribbon with all some pertinent details about your account. Then you have the balance summary, the compliance summary as well, and some empty panels here because it's a new account. There's no activity yet. And then you have the tasks. Once you have the tasks, you also have here the history and the pending tasks that needs approval, but for now it's empty. And then you have the compliance as well, where I will show you later how to do the reporting of the emissions. And then you have the balance and transactions, which also empty. Then representatives, which these are the representatives that we specified during the account opening. And then for the trusted accounts and the account details. So whatever you see here on the screen is, as I've said earlier, this is dependent on the permissions and the settings and the configuration of that specific member state. So it's possible that you might not see some special features like closing the account, be able to edit the general information. This is dependent on on the specific registry. Okay. So going to another type of account, I would like to show you an operator holding account, because for that MOHA we cannot do much because there's nothing in there. So let me go towards to this account just to show you briefly how to do. This is an operator holding account, and this is where you would be able to do certain transactions in the balance and transactions once you have the units involved. So here, this is an account with some units in it, and so that's why you have here the new transaction button enabled. Once you click in here, you have the possibility to perform a new transfer, surrender allowances, and the deletion of allowances. So this is where you do all these things. And then for the new transfer, if you click on this, this is the new transfer form. This is how you would specify the destination account of the transfer. So you can choose here from the list. And then you could also perform a transfer outside of your TAL, as mentioned already before, if it's only allowed for your account. I will not do the transfer given that we don't have much time, but just to show you that this is the new transfer. And then you have to specify if this is a bilateral transaction or not. And then you can click on propose once you have all the mandatory fields filled in. And then also for surrendering the allowances, you can click on surrender of allowances. And this is the form. This is how you would specify as well. It's very simple. For the surrender of allowances, you just have to specify the amount of surrender that you would like to perform. So the surrender of allowances is always available all year long, even though it's not a compliance period. So you have the flexibility to do surrenders whenever you want to. So that's to mention that. And going to the last topic for this live demo. For another account, that this is also an OHA, but all the ones that I have showed you, the transfer, the surrender, and even for this reporting of emissions, the principles are the same as well for MOHA. It's just that we cannot do that for MOHA because we cannot simply do it, especially for the emissions, because it's not yet time for reporting of emissions for maritime operators. Okay, so in the compliance page, you will see here the EU compliance summary, which is very much the same as what you would see in the MOHA. So here you have the ABCs of the compliance statuses if you're familiar with it. So A means it's compliant, B means you are missing some surrender that's not fully covering your emissions, and C just simply means that you have missed reporting and verifying emissions for 1 year that you are included in the compliance application. So in order for you to report an emission, you just have to click here, report emissions. And then you have to select the year of the emissions that you would like to report for. And in this case, for this account, there are many years that, as you can see here, that this account did not report the emissions. So you just simply select one, and then you have to specify the figure for the greenhouse gas. So this one is CO2 and 2O PFC. This is for operator holding account. For MOHA, as mentioned already by our colleagues, in 2024, the only gas that you can report is CO2, and starting 2026, it's N2O and CH4. So you click on propose. And now this request has been submitted. Okay, this reporting of emissions, again, this is also dependent on the member states. Some member states allow their authorized representative. This is national policy, I guess, national regulation, I believe. So some member states allow the ARs to enter their emissions. Some do not. So it might not be available to you, this button. And some member states, it's the national administrators who upload and report the emissions for their operator accounts. And some, it's the verifiers, and for others, it would be a combination. So this is also completely dependent on the national rules. So just to mention that perhaps you might not see all of these things once you have your account opened, and just not to be surprised. And I believe that concludes the live demo from the Union Registry side. We hope that you find this useful and informative. Thank you very much.
Good morning to all. My name is Ricardo Centeno from EMSA, and now I'm going to take the floor just to go on our presentation for this meeting. Just give me a moment to prepare the presentation. I hope everybody can see the slides now. So thank you again. We are working with DG Klima on the implementation of THETIS MRV and the application for the purpose of the EU ETS. I'm going to show you the status of THETIS MRV implementation process. So the IT releases planning for our side. I will go through the key players and new roles that are being implemented on the system as well to fulfill the new requirements. And I'm going to go through also the main activities and have a process overview of the system. And then at the end, we will show some live demo of the system as it is now and focus in the more relevant points for the moment. So regarding the IT planning and looking for the next time schedule, we have to 2023, 24, and 25 years. As we can see on this timeline, we have several releases to have in the near future. Starting with 2023 releases, we have released on September version 5, where we have the new user rules defined, as well as the algorithm for the attribution of companies to administering authorities set up. We have just now released the partial emission report in relation to the MRV regulation up to 2023, which will be necessary also on 2024, but on the scope of the ETS as well. But for the moment, this is necessary as well when there is a change of company, even if the change of company is between ship owners and ISM companies, when a vessel moves from one company to the other. Till the end of November, we will release the monitoring plan schema for uploading and downloading monitoring plans later on. On January 2024, on version 6.1, we will have the monitoring plan deployment, where companies can now start uploading the information prepared regarding the monitoring plan new requirements. At the 1st of February of 2024, with the release and publication of the administering authority list, we will have the activation of the module for administering authorities to be, and it is now ready, but it's going to be activated on February. On March, we have planned the release of version 6.2, where the partial emission and the full emission reports will be available now for the ETS directive and requirements. At the end of the last quarter of 2024, we will have the company emission report, which will aggregate the emissions of all ships belonging to a specific company. This is planned to be available on November, so that on 2025, the full system is operational and ready for verification and surrendering period for the compliance of this regulation. Now, let's go shortly with the key players and the new roles that are available on THETIS MRV. We have, of course, EMSA System Administrator, the company which are the main players, and where the data information flows from the company. All the information starts at the company, it goes through the verifier and the member states. The verifiers have an important role as well on giving feedback on the verification process to the companies, and member states will have new roles with the administering authority role, which will rule the company given to them or them to the companies. As we have the company, it's going to be on a different definition or a shorter definition, so only ship owners and ISM companies can have a role on THETIS MRV from now on, as it is on the regulation. We have also in this player the Union Registry, which the companies will have to fulfill some obligations to the Union Registry, because as we can see on this slide, the link between the THETIS MRV and Union Registry has to be made outside the system and by the company itself. We have also the public, where it is also meant to be informed about all the system and all the information, and it's the data is going to be as it was before, shared with the public as well. Now let's go through the main activities and data. So we have shipping companies, verifiers, member states with the role of administering authorities and the flag. The activities all starts with the MyFleet data, and the different players have different accesses to different fleet data depending on their responsibilities. As the shipping companies is the beginning of the process, the ship monitoring plan has to be implemented at THETIS MRV. It has to be then assessed by the verifiers. So there's going to be a connection to the verifier for this assessment. The monitoring plan then will be assessed by the verifier and returned to the shipping company, which then later on can submit to the administering authority. On the administering authority side, the monitoring plan approval is one responsibility for the administering authority. And of course, as I said before, the information accessed by the administering authority will have the companies and the vessels under the responsibility of those companies. On the system, we have an option to do the per voyage reporting of the activities of each one of the ships belonging to the company. So the activity, the voyages, the ports emissions can be recorded and monitored at the system. And it's important also to point out that ship monitoring plan and reporting information can be uploaded and downloaded by XML files, as it was also before, but with the new revision and the new information required. Later on, the emission reporting or the partial emission reporting has to be also filled in by the shipping company. The verification has to be assessed and verified, not only assessed, but verified by the verifier, which will issue a verification report. The submission to the administering authority can then be done as well. Later on, at the end of the year, the company reporting and company emission report has to be made. The verification has to be shared and verified by the verifier, and the company emission report verification and the ship document of compliance, if everything is obviously well done, as can be issued. Then with this information, it can be submitted to the administering authority and to the Commission as well. The process overview, going through a timeline again, where we have the year N, which is in this case, it's going to be 2024, and N+1 2025. This is the workflow that has been somehow presented on the previous slide with activities that can be performed at the THETIS MRV platform. So basically, this is the workflow through the timeline. We have obviously the member states with the missing authority flags and commission on the bottom of this diagram, where the information is submitted from the other players, the company and the verifiers, to the member states. And we have some activities from the member states. On February, the company's distribution list to administering authority, the administering authority approval of the monitoring plans, and later on for compliance and enforcement activities. As we have said at the beginning, there are some activities that are out of the system. So all the gray area on the left side and bottom left side is activities that cannot be performed at THETIS MRV. For compliance and enforcement, there is some information. There are some information that can be seen from the member states for compliance purposes, which is available on the system. Now I'm going to give the word to my colleague for the IT demonstration, where we will show the latest developments, especially on monitoring plans and partial emission reports, and some steps on the workflow. Thank you.
That's working. Okay, so let's jump into the system right away. So first of all, I would like to show you the new functionality which we have implemented quite recently. This is the partial emissions report for the company users. And I'm showing now the screen of the test company user. Again, just an important disclaimer to mention in the beginning. So this is not a live system. This is our internal system where we do the testing and all the developments. And also I'm using it today for the demonstration purposes. So all the data has been manipulated for the demonstration. Okay, so let's see how it looks like from the company's perspective. So basically, the system has been improved to support partial emissions reports, meaning that emissions report for the part of the reporting period. For the company user, this new functionality is very seamless, which means that it works exactly the same as the full emissions report, with the small, how to say, change is that now for the company users, in case there are emissions data uploaded for the part of the reporting period, the system will allow to choose an option to create a partial report for that period. So this you can see on the system. Here are the options to choose for the parts of 2022, for example. Another important improvement or change to mention here, that since the partial emissions report normally will be submitted when there is a change of the ownership of the vessel. So for example, if the vessel has been sold or purchased by another company, the system will allow the system will show the new company also the data submitted by the previous one. So for example, what you can see on the screen, I'm showing you this from the point of view or from the perspective of the test company T2. And you can see since for example, T2, the second company has purchased this vessel somewhere in the middle of 2022, the previous partial emissions report and the partial data is available here. And there is also the reference to the previous company, to the previous, under which responsibility the ship was before. So for example, T1. Also important to mention that also the document with the partial emissions report previously submitted by the previous company is also available for download in the PDF format. Coming back to my fleet page, which has also been improved to give, how to say, more proper user experience and to allow for the users right away to see the records with the partial emissions report. This will be clearly visible with the reporting period, and the partial emissions report will appear exactly the same as full. And the whole workflow follows the same actors. So meaning that first of all, the partial emissions report is submitted to verifier, verified, and then if it's verified successfully, it can be further submitted to Commission in order to finalize this workflow. One important note here is that for the partial emissions report, the system is not going to issue the TOC. It is only for full report. Okay, so I have quite a lot to show you. So let me just switch to another topic. So another important improvement, which we are actually having at the moment, the system is improved and deployed and tested at the moment now. This is concerning the monitoring plans. So the new workflow and the new content of the monitoring plan will be available. The final version will be available to all company users in the beginning of January next year. However, from the company perspective, you can already notice that there are changes which have been implemented partially, which concerns monitoring plans. So in respect to the new workflow of the monitoring plan, which has to be first submitted to the verifier, assessed, and then submitted to administering authority, which is assigned based on the attribution, which will happen. And I will show you also in the system how it looks like from the company perspective. So you can already notice as company users, you will have for all the monitoring plans existing in the system, you will have additional buttons, submit to verifier and submit to admin authority. Due to the lack of time, I'm not going to show you the full workflow. However, it works as expected. So submitting to verifier, assessment on the verifier side, and then the button submit to admin authority becomes available, and then it goes to the assigned admin authority. Coming back to quite many questions which can be, how to say, raised on the company's side, how it looks in terms of the attribution in the system. So let me just show you. I just clicked it by mistake. Basically in the system, from the company's perspective, there are no actions to be performed. Everything will be done automatically and you will be informed accordingly. So first of all, you will receive a similar message, informative message in the system, saying to which administering authority of which country your companies have been attributed, because you can have several companies managed by your user account in THETIS MRV. Or you can, if you, for example, due to some reason, close this message, you can always go to the config section company staff and you can check all the attributions to all the administering authorities displayed to you here clearly by each company created in your or managed in your user account. So for example, in this demonstration, you can see that my current company test, company T3, has been attributed to the member states of Latvia. Nothing else, no actions to be performed. As I said, this will be done automatically after the whole procedure is is fulfilled. And then this means that for the monitoring plan workflow, administering authority for this particular ship, which I was showing you in the beginning, will go to the administering authority of member state Latvia. Maybe a few more important improvements in regards to monitoring plan to be mentioned here, which will also help you and make this process of submitting the monitoring plans a bit easier, maybe more seamless for the company users. So we will allow the system will allow to upload the monitoring plans using the XML. So similar approach like many company users were using for emissions report can be used here. And the second option, which might also be interesting to use, is the cloning functionality. This means that, for example, if you already have the monitoring plan created and in the system for one of your ships, and you have, I don't know, tens or maybe hundreds of other ships to go, and the majority of the information, some procedures, description of the procedures, or some other data in the monitoring plan can be copy-pasted or, let's say, cloned from the existing one. The system will allow you to do it with this particular option, monitoring plan clone, like I'm showing now on the screen. And that would, how to say, contribute to more seamless and to more easy introduction of this application. I think that I'm good on time, and that's basically from the system point of view. That's what I wanted to show you today. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll give the floor back to Brussels, please. I think that you are muted. Sorry, we cannot hear you.
So thank you, EMSA colleagues. We will you saw briefly on the screen the outcome of the pool. So the top topics of interest, and since we're a bit late on time, we will briefly go through the most recurring questions in the chat, as raised also during the webinar. But what I would like also you to strongly encourage to is to have a look at the recordings of both previous webinars and today's webinars, which will be available as of next week together with the presentations. Because if you go at the last 20 minutes of the event, you will see there are Q&As. And we notice also that some questions were already addressed and raised again today. So it's always useful to use those records as a reference. And on top of that, I would like to stress that we're about to revise the FAQs. Again, many of the questions raised will be in the FAQs available very soon in the revised version on DigiClima website in a matter of a couple of weeks maximum. So today we saw a lot of interest for the responsible entity point, and related to these, there was a question also about the possibility how to in practice delegate responsibility from the ship owner to an ISM company, whether a mandate is foreseen. On these question, team, do you want to provide some elements?
Yes, thank you, Luca, and good morning to all participants. So indeed, there seems to be a need to provide some more clarification, explanation about how to select and appoint a shipping company under the ETS MRV. But let's first remind the rules as regard the definition of shipping company. According to the rules, there should be only one company responsible for both ETS and MRV requirements. And this entity can either be the registered ship owner or the so-called ISM company, also called a dock holder. And at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide who is the most appropriate entity to take over this responsibility, the MRV ETS responsibility. And so typically, for instance, a registered ship owner could well decide to give the ETS MRV responsibility to a ship manager, because the ship manager could be in a better position to implement these new obligations, MRV and ETS. And that's indeed something that is possible to do. However, in such a case, it's important for the ship manager to make sure that, for the ship owner to make sure that the ship manager is the ISM company, the dock holder for the ship concerns. And both entities will have to sign a mandate establishing clearly the transfer of responsibility for MRV and ETS obligation from the registered ship owner to the ISM company. And this has to be done through a mandate. We will not provide a template for that specific mandate, but the implementing legislation is clear about the list, about the elements that will have to be in such a document. For instance, the name of the registered ship owner, the name of the ISM company, the relevant IMO numbers, the contact details, and so on. And we will make sure that these elements are also easy for you to find on our FAQ page. It's also important for you to keep in mind that if such a mandate is established, so between the registered ship owner and the ISM company, the shipping company will have to submit the mandate to its administering authority. And to facilitate this process, THETIS MRV will offer the possibility to upload the document, the mandate, on the ship page. But we encourage you, when the mandate will be done, to check with your administering authority whether the mandates have to be submitted through THETIS or via another way. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. I would like also to elaborate a bit again on responsible entity, because we had questions related to the possibility of divergent subjects taking responsibility for ETS MRV. This has been covered by Tim reply already, but also in relation to registry operations. So we had the questions, for instance, in the case of a ship owner, wanted to delegate some ETS MRV responsibility to ISM companies, but retaining the compliance responsibility in the registry. Well, the answer is that again, the entity shall be the same, because only the entity, the regulated entity taking responsibility for MRV ETS obligations will be able to open a MOA account, where MOA stands for Maritime Holding Operator Holding Account. And the MOA account is the only way to surrender obligation and ensure compliance in the union registry. So it has to be clear. A different thing is the trading account, which simply gives the possibility to any subject to purchase allowances. But this relates to practical operational arrangements between companies. But to open the MOA account, you have to be identified as a shipping company under the directive and the regulation. And then we would also ask whether there is possibility to involve the other companies which are not ISM companies in the compliance system. And again, the answer is no, because it is still possible for companies to delegate some operational tasks which have to do with MRV ETS compliance, if they wish so, to other companies. But this is this remains an operational arrangement between the party, which has no impact with the compliance situation of the responsible company, which will the ultimate responsible, the one enforcement will look at.
Thank you, Luca. Yeah. We also see some interest to better understand the mechanism to attribute an administering authority to a shipping company. We already explained the process during the first webinar, but just to provide some additional clarification, in particular, in case a shipping company is not in the first list that will be published in February. So yeah, the first list will be there published on 1st February next year, and the association, so the administering authority that will be associated to you, this will be also available in THETIS MRV. But it's not because you're not on the list that you are exempted from the ETS obligation. The list will be based on information coming from THETIS MRV, and any shipping company with ships doing voyages falling within the scope of the ETS during the reporting period that starts as from beginning of next year should, of course, comply with the relevant ETS obligation. And so in the case of a shipping company that is not on the list, it is the responsibility of the shipping company to determine itself, its administering authority, applying the rules spelled out in the ETS directive that are also explained on our FAQ webpage, and that we also went into more details during the first webinar. And the THETIS MRV help desk will also be there to assist, if need be, the companies in assigning and determining the responsible administering authority in the system. Of course, in such a case, the company will then be added to the list as part of the next update of the list. But in the meantime, the company will remain associated with the administering authority that it has identified according to the rules. I hope this clarifies this specific question.
Yes, and with this one, I would like to pass the floor to our registry colleagues to address a couple of the most recurrent questions on this presentation. Ralph, and then Maria.
Yes, we have, I believe we have a few questions here. First one was, as a shipping company, am I obliged to also open a trading account to purchase allowances? No, not at all. You're not obliged. You can open your Maritime Open Operator Holding account, and that will serve the purpose. A trading account is on a voluntary basis. Can a shipping company based outside the EU open a maritime operator holding account? Yes, it's even an obligation actually to request such an account. Compliance with surrender obligations will have to be done with this account. And then we have another question: tax implications for acquiring, transferring to and surrendering EUAs. Well, tax obligations are in the remit of the member states. Actually, that's not a EU question. So it can be. It depends on in which member state you're registered in. This is where I think the questions on my side, and there were some more. Maria, maybe you want to take them?
Yes, thank you, Ralph. So indeed, for the registry application specific questions, for the first one, you have asked when will the new registry account design or the user interface would be available to the end user, since some of you have already noticed that it's not exactly the same as you have it now. Indeed, the plan is to make available the new user interface alongside the Maritime implementation on mid-January 2024. So around 15th of January, at least this is our target plan. And linked to this, it will be possible as well to start requesting the opening of Maritime Operator Holding Account. It just means that the functionality is there. But as we have mentioned earlier, you have to start requesting the account opening for MOHA only once the attribution list is published. But the functionality will be available around 15th of January. And then next question is about the Maritime Verifier registration in the registry. So as a verifier, verifier user can already register in the registry using the old user interface. And however, you could also create an account for the verifier. However, this is not fully implemented for Maritime. So in order for you to set the accreditation, or for you to be able to verify a Maritime operator, this is the one that is pending. So this is what we are working on currently to be implemented. The provisional date is in May 2024 for the full functioning of the verifier. So this is using the new user interface as well. So the complete package for verifier with the new user interface would be available provisionally on May 2024. And the last question is about the tutorial videos or other support tool for MOHA. So for the support materials like manuals and video tutorials, we are currently working on this to update them because they are existing currently, but using the old interface. So in order for this manuals and videos to be adopted with the same design as we have showed you earlier, we have to update them. So the target as well is to have this available once we have the user interface ready in production, which is around January. And that's, I believe, all from our side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria-Elise. Very briefly, a couple of questions for our EMSA colleagues in Lisbon, and then we will wrap up this webinar. Thank you.
Okay, we have several questions on the chat. So we cannot answer all of them, but we'll go on some of them. Some questions about the obligation to prepare and submit the monitoring plan via the THETIS MRV. Yes, it's from now on, it's mandatory to submit and prepare the monitoring plan at the THETIS MRV. It's going to be made available from the January 2024, but the templates are already published and companies can start working on them from right now, as we said before. The XML file will be available, and the preparation or the schema for the XML files will also be available by the end of November, so that companies can also start preparing their IT systems the best way possible. We also have another question about if when the list of shipping companies is published, as a shipping company, do I have to do something in THETIS MRV, like selecting my administering authority? We have also explained about that. No, but it's important to understand that once the monitoring plan is ready to be submitted to the administering authorities, the companies will have to click on the button as it was presented before and on the submission to the administering authority. And then the system will notify the relevant administering authority to follow up as appropriate. This will be also the same idea for the ships emission reports and company emissions reports. So basically, from the moment that you have the attributed administering authority, which is going to, as Lucas explained before, it's going to be attributed. And if you don't have this attribution, of course, you can contact EMSA and ask for the process as fast as possible. So now I'm going to give the floor back to you in Brussels. And, thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I would just like to thank again for your active participation of all the participants. We got quite a number of questions. We tried to address as many as we could, but we also know that there might be some that we didn't manage to address. But we would like to encourage you to look at all the material that is available on our website, because some of your questions might already be answered in that material, including the frequently asked questions that already Luca referred to. So after today's seminar, we're going to send the link to the presentations or presentation themselves, and the link to the webinar, recording of the webinar to all of the participants, including the link to the website where we have all the material published. We will also circulate a link to an online survey, a bit similar as we did today, to further help us sort of focus the future seminars and the communication material on our website to really try to answer the main questions that you have as well as we can. I would just like to encourage you again to, in addition to the emails that you will receive, to also just on a regular basis check the website of EMSA and the Commission for the answers to your questions and explanatory material, because we will of course keep updating what is already available there. And if you still have any, let's say, leftover questions after studying that material, please do contact us also through the email address for the help desk that we foresee for to support you in preparing for the implementation of the EU Emission Trading System. So with that, I would also like to thank colleagues for the preparation of this webinar and for all the hopefully clear explanations today. And then close the webinar and yeah, see you next time. Thank you very much.